welcome back. And if you're new, thanks for stopping by. Today, I want to talk to you about budgeting in Japan. I know before we got here, one of the things that I was nervous about was how much are things going to cost? What is it going to be like switching from USD to yen, the local currency? I was just there was just a lot of uncertainties and unknowns. So I want to share with you our budget and help to alleviate maybe some of your concerns if you're thinking about coming here or even traveling overseas anywhere. Obviously, different places are going to cost different. And I just want to give you an idea of what it has cost us thus far in Japan. All right, before I get into our actual spending for the month of February, let's talk about budgeting. What is a budget? Why do we even budget? A budget is simply put as a spending and income plan, right? And it's basically where you put in your spending for the month, you put in your income for the month, and then you use that to project the next month, and then you continue to do that month after month. And slowly but surely, if you're mindful and aware of your spending and income, you will begin to see changes and improvements in your finance. So that answers the simple question of why budget. Why? Because budgeting shows you exactly where your money is going, right? When you have a budget, it also makes you more aware of your spending habits. For example, when I started budgeting several years ago, one of the areas that I knew I needed to work on was spending too much on eating out. So the first thing I had to do was track how much was I spending on eating out. And then I said, okay, if I spent X amount of dollars this month, next month, I want to cut that back. So what it did was made me aware of my spending when it came to just say eating out for that month. And I'd be like, okay, am I on target? Have I already spent my limit? How much more do I have to spend? And so forth. So budgeting is a very powerful tool that I would recommend for every individual, every family, anyone who wants to be financially healthy. And for me, budgeting was so eye-opening to not only how much I was spending, but how much I could learn to save and invest. I used to be a spender. My husband will tell you, when he met me, he was like, oh no, this isn't gonna work. So when I started budgeting, I was actually able to save more in a year than I had ever saved in my lifetime. I saved/invested over $10,000 in 1 year. And nothing changed, y'all. My income didn't change. The only thing that changed was my spending and my ability to save and invest more. So think about that for a minute. Budgeting can be very, very powerful. Some people think of budgeting like, oh, it's just gonna make it so I can't buy that cup of coffee or I can't go on my trip. It's the opposite. When you budget successfully, you can actually have more of the things you want in life versus not having those things. It might take you a little time to get there, and it depends on your financial goals. It depends on your income and expenses. There's so many things to take into account when we're talking about budgeting, and it can be such a life changer. All right, well, that's enough about budgeting. Let me go ahead and show you our expenses for February. It's not a complete budget yet. It's the beginning of us starting to budget. So January is when we got to Japan. I wasn't even thinking about a budget at that point. It was just too much going on for me to do that. February is when we finally got our house and got settled in. So that's when we actually started budgeting and tracking our spending. So this is just going to show you our expenses for the month of February. And I will use this data to create our budget for March and beyond. Here are our expenses for February, just to give you an idea of how we calculated these expenses. So I didn't track it throughout the month, meaning I didn't put in expenses each time we made them. What I did was I took our bank statements for the month of February, exported them into Google Sheets, and then I just added them up. For example, right here where it says commissary, all I did with that was all the line items on our bank statement that said commissary, I took them, I added them up, and then that's how I came up with the total, $362.53. And then you'll see I have a line item here that says local groceries. This is something new to Japan. When I budgeted in the United States, I didn't have that because our spending was different in the States. So for here, I wanted to see what we were spending at the commissary versus what we were spending out in the town. And if you look at it, we spent about equal amounts at the commissary versus out in town. So that was interesting to find. And I also wanted to see what we were spending in total on groceries so that I could see if what we spent back in the United States was the same as what we were spending here. Because I was a little nervous about that because we have a small Japanese refrigerator, which because of that, we have to go grocery shopping every week versus every other week, which is what I used to do in the United States. So I was worried that go in the store, the more often I go in the store, the more I'm going to spend, right? The more I want to buy this, that, and the third. So I was grateful to see that our grocery spending totaled about $714. And with that being said, that's about what we would spend back in the States. We would normally spend anywhere from $650 to $750 on groceries. So we're on par to spend what we would normally spend on groceries. And next line item, Amazon toiletries. This normally would be in my groceries. So now we're putting the grocery bill up even higher. But this one, I put a line item for this because there are certain toiletries such as hair products that we cannot get here in Japan. So we order them off of Amazon. And I wanted to see what that expense was separate from groceries. So that we have $57.31. Then you see car maintenance and repair. We didn't have any in February. Car insurance is paid yearly, and we paid that in January, so that's $0. And then car road taxes, we'll pay that in March, and that's $0 right now. Gasoline, we spent $124.99, which I think isn't bad considering we have 2 vehicles. Internet and cable, we spent $203.45. Now here, you'll see bus, train, then you'll see tolls, taxi, and parking. If you hear that noise in the background, that's the 4 o'clock sound that goes off every day at 4 to let us know it's 4 o'clock in Japan. Or in our neighborhood. So I broke this down because normally I would just put this under travel. However, I wanted to be able to compare what we were spending on bus and train, tolls and taxi to see if it's cheaper to take the bus and train places or if it's cheaper to do the car, or does it just depend on the place? So I just started tracking that this month. So on bus and train, we spent $40.67, and then tolls, taxis, and parking, we spent $17.36. Now, I'm going to put a caveat to that. There are a lot of times we paid tolls in cash, and I didn't do the best job of keeping track of that in the month of February because we were just so busy. So in March, I'm going to do a much better job so I can have a more accurate total. And so you'll see a little later on, there's a line item on here for withdrawals because, again, we spent a lot of cash in February. And so I didn't know exactly what that cash was spent on, so I just put it on there because I wanted to account for the expense. And going forward, we're going to do a better job at keeping track of where we spent the cash so that I can see where to put it in our budget. All right, truck and renter's insurance. So we kept one vehicle in the United States, and it is in storage that the military is paying for. However, we still have to keep truck insurance on there, and then we also have renter's insurance for our home. So with that being said, that totals $201.05. Life insurance, $223.74, and then for the dog, we spent $29.95 for the month of February. And then we have gas bill, electric bill, water bill. We didn't get any of those in the month of February because we just moved into our house, so that'll be upcoming in March. And then our cell phone bill was $260.02, and that was a little bit higher than normal because we decided to pay an extra $50 per phone for my husband and myself for the month of February so that we can make international calls, and I had to pay 25 cents a minute. However, March, we're dropping that, so that bill should come down quite a bit. So our total spent on necessities was $1,874. All right, let's go down and look at wants. So wants, clothing, jewelry, etc. We only spent $16.71, which is quite nice because we haven't been doing a whole bunch of that type of shopping here, which is nice. Dining out, y'all. We spent $423.27, which is a lot when you look at us already spending over $700 some dollars in groceries. Plus this, that's over $1,100 in eating. That's a lot of eating. So that's definitely something we're going to be working on and focused on for the month of March. So hopefully when I show you our March budget, it'll come down quite. Entertainment, nothing. Personal, just eyebrows was $15. So travel expenses, you saw I broke that down up top with taxis and tolls and stuff. I didn't put it down here because again, I want to see specifically what we're spending in each line item. Home items, we had to buy items for the house since we were moving into a new house. So obviously that's an expenditure that we won't have as much of every month. And for the month of February was $395.15. Now, what you see here where it says Naya, that's our daughter. And normally I just have a line item that says girls, what we spent on them in the month. However, this month I broke it up because, as you see underneath, you have Imani. I didn't spend anything on her because she's away in college. Now, Naya, on the other hand, she celebrated her 18th birthday in February. And for that, we did 18 days of giving. So 18 days prior to her birthday, up to her birthday, she got a gift, a small gift every day. Plus, we took her out for her birthday. So this line item obviously will be much cheaper in the month of March because I don't plan on spending $425.93 on her every month. All right, gifts. We mailed some treats back to our parents in the state. That was $45.60. And then we did $34 in donations. Navy exchange, we spent $185.75. That is an expense that I plan to hopefully get rid of. again, we just weren't keeping the best track of our money in February. So this month in March, for Navy Exchange, every time we go, we keep the receipt and write on the back what it was, like where it should go, whether it's under groceries, whether it's under clothing, so that when I put everything in for the month of March, I can actually put it in the categories that it was spent in, so we know exactly what we're spending on those different areas. And same for miscellaneous cash withdrawals. You see that's $473.65. That's a lot of cash to not know where it went, right? I mean, we have ideas, but we didn't keep the receipts like we normally would, just because new place, new experiences, and yeah, we didn't do what we should have done in the month of February. Going forward, we will. Anywho, with that being said, total spent on wants was $2,015, which took our total spent for the month of February $3,800. That's our spending for February, and I'll show you what March looks like when we get there. All right, well, thanks for checking out that video. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. All my contact information is in the description below. And yeah, I hope it also helps to kind of alleviate some of the stresses that might come with moving overseas, and so that you kind of have an idea of what expenses there might or might not be, right? So those expenses are based on how we live, obviously, and the things that we do and how we spend our money, right? And because I was budgeting prior to coming to Japan, I was still, although I wasn't necessarily budgeting when we first got to Japan, I was still very much aware of our expenses versus our income when we got here. Best of luck with budgeting in Japan or anywhere you're going overseas, or even in the United States, right? I would encourage you to budget anywhere and everywhere. I just wanted to share with you our experience with beginning the budgeting process here in Japan. All right, well, stay tuned for March's budget, because it will include some of our living off base expenses, such as the gas, electric, and the water bill. All right, until next time, be well.